Hi, welcome to another episode of Mike's Collection. I'm Mike, and I will be talking about my collection, some of which you can see behind me here. In my last video, I did a retrospective of the G.I. Joe Collectors Club figure subscription service 1.0 that they released in 2013, which was comprised of 12 figures that were shipped to you in sets of 2 over the course of 6 months, and the extra mystery 13th figure, which is included in the final shipment. So the Collectors Club put out 8 of these figure subscription services. The last one is just wrapping up right now. So I thought it was a good time to go back and take a look at these. So last video was subscription service number 1. In this video, I'm going to take a look at the 13 figures included in figure subscription service number 2, which came out the tail end of 2013 and the beginning of 2014. So without further ado, let's take a look at those figures. In my video where I reviewed figure subscription service number 1, I reviewed the figures in a completely random order. This time around, I'm going to review the figures in the order that we received them in our mailboxes. So the first shipment from figure subscription service 2, which was in 2013, contained Tiger Force Airtight. So you'll see Tiger Force Airtight here. Got his tiger stripes throughout the costume, and he's got a removable helmet here. There we go. Kind of a cool hazmat look underneath. Now, I like Airtight, and this is a nice figure, very well constructed. The problem I have with this figure is it's just a little too similar to the original Airtight. So this is the modern era, the first version of Airtight we got, which is based off the very first original figure. And yeah, that was a great figure too. I was very happy with that one. And then this Tiger Force one, considering that the base costume is still yellow, even though it's got stripes, it's just a little too similar. So it was hard to get too excited about this one. But one thing that is kind of neat about Tiger Force Airtight is in the vintage Joe line, Airtight was never a member of Tiger Force, but a version of Airtight was released in Brazil in these tiger striped colors and with the brown, and he was a different character. He was called Air Puro, and that was released in 1990 in Brazil. So the Collectors Club, what they've done here, they didn't bother calling this guy Air Puro, but that's what collectors who really know their stuff know, that this is actually their version of Air Puro rather than just Tiger Force Airtight. Next up is Tiger Force Shipwreck. And just like Airtight, Shipwreck was not in Tiger Force in the original vintage line, but in Brazil, a version of Shipwreck was released in these colors, and his name was Marujo or something like that. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it right. So again, the club, when they made this figure, not only is it kind of neat to get a Tiger Force version of Shipwreck along with his parrot Polly, but it's also the first time North Americans have ever got a version of Marujo. So this Shipwreck, he's got quite a few accessories there. You'll see he's got a removable pistol, as well as a machine gun and some sort of spear gun in his hand there as well. The removable pouch, and Polly does come off of the pouch. She's kind of just perched on there. And yeah, it makes for a pretty nice Shipwreck. Sculpt-wise, it's a big improvement over the very first Shipwreck we got in the modern era. This guy had kind of some weird proportions, really big Popeye kind of forearms. And we did get better versions later on in the line. Like this here is from the 50th anniversary. It's a much more kind of realistic version of Shipwreck. Now, we actually did get this figure in these classic colors at one point. I didn't actually bother to pick that one up. But yeah, it's another neat addition to the Tiger Force team. And it's a nice version of Shipwreck. So next we have Skullbuster, and this is version 2. The only other version was the original O-ring version, which came out in 2002. And what Skullbuster was basically was just a range viper with a name. So they just took a range viper figure who was just a standard trooper and repainted him in unique colors and kind of made him just a unique character. So when the modern era started, we did get a modern era range viper. So this range viper looks a lot like the vintage one, colors wise and all that stuff. And so then when the club gave us Skullbuster, they took a lot of the parts that were used on the range viper and used them again here. So he's a pretty cool figure. Again, he's got a decent amount of accessories. And I will mention too, I'm not sure, it's highly unlikely that what you're seeing here is all the accessories these figures came with. Whatever I couldn't fit in their hands at the time, I just threw in my accessories bucket, and I probably haven't looked at them in a long time. So these are just some of the accessories you're seeing with the figures. So yeah, you'll see here he's got a machine gun, big long bullet belt, pistol in his holster there, and his helmet, the little skull helmet here, is removable. And you've got just kind of a ski mask look underneath. So this is a cool figure. I like the colors. Although one thing I wish they had done is reused the arms on the range viper here. For some reason, it looks like they actually did for the upper arms, but the lower arms are different. And it gives Skullbuster these really big kind of gorilla arms. They look really out of proportion with the rest of the figure. That's why when I display him, I keep his arms folded and he's holding his gun in front of him, and you don't really notice that issue. Whereas if they'd just given him the range viper arms, that wouldn't have been a problem. But either way, I'm always happy to get a unique named Cobra character to add to my Cobra shelf. Also in the second shipment from Figure Subscription Service number 2 was Widescope. So he came with Skullbuster. Now this is Widescope version 2, and the original one came out in 2003 during the new Sculpt era. So he's a relatively new character. He was not part of the vintage line. And as a fan of the new Sculpt era, I really liked Widescope because my favorite character as a kid, my favorite toy, was Shockwave, who was the original G.I. Joe SWAT Trooper. So here I'll bring in Shockwave. This is the modern era version of him. And it's a decent figure, but I didn't love it for my favorite character. I thought they could have done better. And so it's a little shame. It's a bit of a shame that this Widescope, who's basically a knockoff of Shockwave or an apprentice of Shockwave, he's got the superior figure here. He uses the exact same head and same hat, but the parts used for his legs and arms and stuff are just more modern parts that were used later in the series, and just makes for a better figure. He's more detailed. He's got better articulation. So yeah, it's a shame that Widescope is better than Shockwave. But if you really wanted, I suppose you could just use this as Shockwave. And then, one cool thing that he's got here is his dog Lamont, which he's got leashed here. But I will take Lamont out of his leash. Now there's no articulation on him. At least he does have some paint apps there on the eyes and on his harness. But yeah, it's always nice to get a pet with your G.I. Joes. So I like having these guys together. It makes for a nice little SWAT team. And I'm just going to interject here for a quick second and talk about Marauder Task Force figures. If you're not familiar with them, this is a little company that makes G.I. Joe compatible figures. And when you go on their website, you buy these characters all in little parts. You buy the legs, you buy the arms, you buy the vests. Even all these little pouches you buy separately, they all come off. So you plug all that stuff in, the knives on the legs. So with this version here, the beret, the goggles, everything there is separate. So for characters like Shockwave, who maybe Hasbro didn't get him 100% right, you can make some pretty cool versions using Marauder Task Force figures, which is what I've done here. So in the third shipment from Figure Subscription Service 2, we get Desert Scorpion version 2. So this figure is based on the 1991 original. And yeah, it's a pretty cool figure. Now he was kind of a unique looking figure. The original one had like kind of a cloth scarf. This one here, they made him all using existing parts. He's actually got a snake eyes head, but it looks enough like the Desert Scorpion head, especially once you add that the Night Creeper hood on him, and it looks pretty good. Now this one, he came with kind of a cool robot scorpion sidekick / pet. I don't have that one out. It's in my extra parts bucket. But otherwise, this spear that he came with is pretty cool, along with the gun and the pack. My only real complaint about this figure is using these legs, which I believe were originally for the Night Creeper. Yeah, he kind of leans backwards. It's hard to get him to lean straight forward. So he's one of those guys I find that topples over on the shelf sometimes. But other than that, he's pretty cool looking. So with Desert Scorpion, we also get Tollbooth. So this is Tollbooth version 2. The only other version of Tollbooth was the original that came out in 1985, and he was the driver of the bridge layer vehicle. So this is the first figure in FSS 2 that we got a brand new head sculpt. So it's a very nice head sculpt. It really captures his kind of blue collar look with the hard hat. And he came with a ton of cool accessories. I don't have them all here, but he's got his sledgehammer. You can see that pickaxe, which I've got kind of tucked into his vest, but with that little knob on it, you can actually just tuck it directly into his back, I believe. He also came with a couple of like traffic cones and some coiled barbed wire. So yeah, lots of neat stuff. A unique figure on the shelf. And you know, a lot of these figures you'll notice are redos of figures that were either foreign figures or figures from the late 90s, which was kind of after I got out of G.I. Joe. So it's kind of nice to finally get updates of a character like this who's from 1985. He's from a character from very early on in the line. So yeah, it was great to get an updated Tollbooth finally in 2013. In the fourth shipment, we got Cespool. So this is Cespool version 2. It is based on the original, which was released in 1991. And he was kind of the Cobra's new villain that was a counterpart to G.I. Joe's Echo or Eco Force, which was kind of like the environmentally themed figures they released there in the early 90s. So I didn't have Cespool as a kid, because I had gotten out of Joe's by then. But he's a pretty cool looking character, and with that gnarly scar on his face, yeah, he's pretty cool. And this again was a brand new head sculpt. Now it's been reused a couple of times since. You might recall if you watched my Final 12 video, they just used it again very recently for this guy here on Coils of Doom. So it's kind of unfortunate when they reuse such a unique head, because it really speaks to this character. However, if you wanted just Coils to have that face on, you could put this helmet on Cespool that he came with. So I'll just plop that on him here. If it fits, I haven't had him wear it in a long time. So yeah, so there you go. You can display him that way if you choose. Now he has some cool accessories as well. He's got his tanks and his gun and his suitcase here, because he is an evil CEO. Let me just pop this out here. Yeah, you'll see his suitcase here is full of American cash, as well as euros too. So that's kind of a neat little accessory. And yeah, Cespool is one of the better figures of FSS 2. And packaged with Cespool, we had Night Force Lieutenant Falcon. So this is a very cool version of Lieutenant Falcon. Probably my favorite of the ones that I have. Again, if you watch my video on the Final 12, because we just got a new version of Falcon in the Final 12, I commented how, even though we've got some nice versions of Falcon now, I wish we had a nice version of Falcon in his classic green camo colors. Unfortunately, we don't. But this version here is a huge improvement over the first Falcon figure we got. Now, the head, which is a very nice head with removable beret. Now, we just got that, I think maybe the year before for this figure from the Slaughter's Marauders pack. So you'll see a lot of the same parts are used here. So if you ask me, this was the first nice Falcon figure we got, which was leaps and bounds better than the original one. And then this one here improves on it even further. And yeah, if you got the convention box set the year before, because it was Night Force themed, and that had Night Force versions of Charbroil, Psycho, Hit and Run, a bunch of guys. This Falcon is a nice addition to that team. In the 5th shipment, we got Keelhaul version 3. So this is based on the original 1985 Keelhaul, which a lot of kids probably didn't have. I didn't have it because he came packaged with the USS Flag, which was the 6-foot G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. And yeah, that was an expensive toy and it took up a lot of room. So yeah, a lot of kids didn't have that. And it was a shame because Keelhaul was a cool toy. So they did release another version a couple of years later, I believe, but he wasn't as good. He wasn't in his kind of classic look here. So I'm very happy to get this classically styled Keelhaul. And it's a really nice figure. And he's got a brand new head, which looks great. Great paint job on it as well. And he's got this kind of cool stand with the flag. It's kind of an inside joke that Keelhaul still comes with the flag. And so his display base has a little hole in the corner so that the flag can be displayed. A couple other neat accessories he's got. The binoculars, which fit around his neck. And a coffee mug. So I think that's a first. But yeah, again, this is a great figure and another highlight of FSS2. And with Keelhaul, we got Bombardier. And again, I'm not 100% sure I'm pronouncing that right, but that's how I say it. So this is Bombardier version 1. This character is not based on any figures from the vintage line. But what he is based on is a figure that was going to be released in the UK as part of the Action Force line. And there was some, I think, images and maybe some prototypes that were found. And nobody knew what this figure was for the longest time. And yeah, so that's eventually what it was. We discovered that it was an unproduced figure from the UK. And the Collectors Club decided to give us an updated version of what could have been back in the early 80s had they actually released Bombardier. So I think some people were kind of disappointed with this character. I actually think it's really cool. Where he kind of falters is the fact that he's made of parts that were released very early on in the modern era. So he's a complete repaint of Flash from 2008. So even underneath his helmet here, he's just got Flash's head, although they've repainted his hair. This guy's kind of dirty blonde, strawberry blonde hair. So it differentiates him from Flash a little bit, who has brown hair. But the look is quite different, where Flash is wearing a green uniform with red pads. This gray and yellow with the red trim. It's it's a really neat look. And I really dig the blue visor as well. So yeah, it's a cool figure. And he came with this, which is kind of a cool accessory. Some sort of drone. And yeah, I believe it launches that missile there too. So yeah, I really like that the club covers not only classic characters like Keelhaul and Tollbooth, but also these kind of unique little UK characters or unproduced prototypes. Yeah, and I thought this was another great addition. Now in 2012, the Collectors Club went with the October Guard as the theme for their convention set. So that contained a lot of the well-known October Guard characters. And if you're not familiar with the October Guard, they were introduced in the G.I. Joe comics in the 80s. and they appeared in the cartoon, and they were basically Russia's equivalent to G.I. Joe. And so the last shipment of Figure Subscription Service 2 gave us 2 new characters to add to the October Guard. So this is Big Bear. This is version 3, and he's based on the original 1992 version of Big Bear. Now we've got a brand new head with this figure, and it looks fantastic. And then he's got a mix of parts. I actually think the legs might have been brand new on this guy as well. But yeah, he looks big and bulky, and yeah, he's got some big weapons to tote around, so it's good that he's a big guy. And yeah, I think this is a great figure, and it's very cool to be able to add to the October Guard. They even have the green display base, which matches up with the convention set. So the other member of the October Guard that shipped with Big Bear was Dragonsky, and this is version 3 of him. And this is a character that was introduced in the comic books early on, and we never got our first figure of him until 2005, and another one in 2006. But this figure isn't actually based on either of those 2 O-ring figures. This is actually based on his look from the comic books. So it's a very unique look. Made up of all reused parts, though. I think maybe the helmet's new. I actually can't recall. But underneath the helmet, he's actually sporting that familiar Airtight head. If you recall, there's Airtight. But yeah, it's a cool look. The flame effect on the flamethrower is pretty great. And again, it's just it's fun to add to the October Guard, and this was a pretty cool figure. And that brings us to the 13th figure. So this was the mystery figure. Nobody was expecting this guy, so we didn't know we were going to get him until we opened up that last package. And even though Grandslam is a classic character, he's one of the original 13 Joes, a lot of people were really pissed off about this figure. I think partly because he's relatively plain, as opposed to, say, the first mystery figure, which was Blackout, which was kind of a unique character, kind of a curveball, kind of unexpected. And then this guy is the complete opposite of all that. He's a very basic figure, very kind of boring, and we already had versions of Grandslam. So yeah, a lot of people were really disappointed. Like maybe if they had put this in the regular set and made Keelhaul or Tollbooth the mystery figure, people would have been very happy. But another reason that this figure was a bit of a letdown is he's a complete repaint of Flash. And we already got a complete repaint of Flash already in this set. So these figures are identical. Even the heads underneath the masks. And you'll see them both here. This is Flash. So, I don't know if you can hear Casey freaking out upstairs there, but my dog is kind of barking. So there you see them all together. Flash, Grandslam, Bombardier. So all very similar figures. These two especially. The Grandslam did come with Scrap Iron's missile launcher set, which was kind of a cool accessory. And I was actually pretty happy to get Grandslam, to be honest. Like, sure, I was expecting something a little more exciting, but after I accepted it, I was like, yeah, of course we needed this figure, because we had versions of pretty much everybody else in the original 13, and we did have Grandslam. We had Grandslam with silver pads, and here was the other version of Grandslam I had in blue pads, but it wasn't true to the original 1982 figure. The original 82 figure looked like this. Him and Flash were virtually twins. And even this one here, I like my characters to have unique head sculpts, but I found this head was, he looks too young. I think it's the same head that Ace had. But I imagine Grandslam is a bit of an older guy. And this head just didn't really work for me. So even though it's a decent figure, I prefer this version of Grandslam. The head looks older. The uniform is more accurate to the 82 version. And yeah, I'm happy to have him. So there you go. That is a look at figure subscription service number 2. And here's a shot of everyone together. I figured I might as well throw this in the video. I've got to put them all together to take a picture for the title card anyway. So there you go. You see everybody all together. So overall, a nice set of figures. So there you go. That's my review of Figure Subscription Service 2.0. Stay tuned as I will post videos of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. So thanks a lot for watching.